No, I am not smoking something. There really were sacred chickens in ancient Rome, and they were really, really important. You all said you wanted some fun history from time to time after my video on the East German traffic light men, so let's do it. Let's have some fun history. Romans were a bit of a superstitious lot, all throughout their history, and yes, this includes right up to the crisis of the 3rd century and the collapse of the empire in the West. Constantine the Great famously having said to have had a vision of the Cairo in which sign he would conquer the Roman world. At least that's how the ancient Christian legend goes. Even older, I'm talking way back in the Republic and onwards, the Romans, when they needed some divine help, would often look for omens before battles and major events that would dictate their lives. The role of the sacred chickens in omen divination was taken incredibly seriously, and not just any old chicken would do. They absolutely had to be of a specific variety of poultry. This is no garden mill variety of dirty bird served up on a zinger burger with mayonnaise, oh no. This was a divine chicken that dictated your future. These holy birds were said to have been sourced from the island of Negroponte, also known as Euboea, which is not too far from the city of Athens. It's that sort of dangly bit to the north of Athens when it sort of sticks out. I'll put a map up, it'll make sense. In Greece. Apparently, this was necessary for reasons. A good old-fashioned Roman chicken would simply not do for these civilized parts of society. It had to be an exotic chicken. These fairly fabulous fancy pheasants would be kept in special cages in the forum or near consuls or generals, or just important people in general, until their time arrived, and they were needed. The chickens, naturally given their prophetic nature, would only be raised by priests, and would be tended to with great affection and care. As if you would trust a sacred chicken to a mere commoner, or a peasant. But dear viewer, you may now ask, how does a chicken tell the future? What a silly question, of course, how do you not know? Well, by putting your filthy heresy aside and doubting for a moment the benevolent power of our chicken overlords, they obviously do it by showing the silly mortal human with how they eat their grain. See, the trick was that if the chicken ate and spread around the grain like it was at a final buffet before the rapture, with all the best snacks on the planet, then you had a positive omen, and the sacred chickens were on your side. If the chicken didn't eat, well, you were not long for this world. But what happens when the chicken doesn't eat, and you need to get into battle because, I don't know, you're a consul and it's your day to be in charge today, and tomorrow it's the other consul who will be in charge, and you want the victory and not him because you want a better political career and you want more power, but if he gets the day in charge when he starts the battle, it's his power because the chickens might like him more. This is a very Roman problem, but nevertheless it's a Roman problem that did exist and did occur from time to time. You may ask what the answer is. The answer is simple. You starve the chicken. Because it helps with achieving accurate results, and then you open the cage and have a priest throw some food at the starving bird. But remember, you cannot falsify a sacred chicken's divination, or you may suffer the wrath of the gods. L. Papirius Cursor, consul in the Roman year 482, declared war, according to Livy's Book 10, on the Samnites, and one day the Roman army discovered that they were in a bit of a situation where they had to get into battle quickly. However, it was necessary to consult the sacred chickens, and although the chickens did not eat well when they were taken from their cage, those who were in charge to observe the bad omens of the birds, doing bird things, were confident without any kind of persuasion whatsoever that the chickens had in fact viciously eaten. Therefore, it was a good omen, and not a bad one. At this, the consul promised his soldiers at the time both the battle and victory. However, there was a bit of a dispute among those who guarded the chickens about this omen that it had reportedly been false. Because yes, naturally the prophetic chickens had armed guards. These grumblings found their way to Papirius himself, who said that the favourable omen had been reported to him and therefore it must be true, and that he would hold on to it. That if he had not been told the truth, it was the business of those who drew the omens, and that all evil would fall on their heads. And not his, of course. Naturally, he was the perfect example of an executive manager, because his next action was to immediately order these unfortunates be put on the front lines. Crazily enough, before the signal of battle could be given, a random arrow flew out of nowhere with no one knowing what side it came from, because obviously they just didn't check the body, and pierced the guard of the chickens, who had reported the omen falsely. As soon as the consul heard the news, he allegedly cried, "The gods are present here. The criminal is punished. They have discharged all their anger upon him who deserved it. Now we have nothing but reasons to hope. The consul definitely did not make all of this up to shoot the soldier who he had lie about the chickens to reassure his soldiers that the gods were on his side. Why would you consider that as an option? That said, there may be something funky about these little feathery witches, because at the naval battle of Drepana, when the chickens refused to eat in 249 BC, the Roman commander Pulcher pitched them overboard, while claiming that if they were not hungry, then perhaps they were thirsty. Clearly he's a bit of a silly sausage because they don't drink seawater. It must be said that Polybius does not mention this, and given he's our main source, we have to on the battle itself, it has led others such as T.P. Wiseman to even think that the whole episode was an invention from some hostile writer later down the track to rip into the Claudii, which the Claudii were the targets of a lot of hostile writers over the years, so it checks. The Romans did, after all, love propagandizing other families non-stop until they either shut up or gave up or just got killed. But hey, maybe, just maybe it was the sacred chickens, because Pulcher would lose almost 100 ships and 20,000 men, while his Carthaginian opponents would walk away without so much as a scratch. Spooky chicken nonsense indeed. Some years later, in another war, the sacred chickens ran off into the woods just as Gaius Hostilius Mensinius was preparing to consult them about his upcoming campaign against the Numantians. Clearly having missed the WebEx invite link, the chickens were searched for some time, but they were never found. Mensinius, for his lax chicken wrangling abilities, would be punished, as he suffered a decisive military defeat at the hands of the Numantians, and was forced to accept the terms of a peace treaty unfavourable to both himself and, of course, to Rome. He later returned to Rome to face a trial by the Senate, and the conscript fathers refused to ratify the treaty and decided that instead, for Mensinius, well, he was to be handed over stark naked to the Numantians, who were thoroughly confused and then sent the naked man home. These are just 3 examples of this interesting little historical anecdote about the sacred chickens of ancient Rome. Of course, we really do find this all a bit silly and childish, and probably, hey, in 2,000 years there will be some neo-Hyperborean cyborg space marine giggling on TowTube, laughing at our religious practices. But nonetheless, it is a bit of a fun part of history. The Roman history of religion is a bit wild, truth be told, and if you guys like, I'm more than happy to go into it a bit further and explain how Rome went from consulting the sacred chickens to adopting and spreading Christianity all around Europe and the continents as its dominant religion. But that is a very, very long story for another time, if you guys want it. This was just a short, quick bit of fun. Remember though, kids, always consult the sacred chickens. I myself will now go to KFC to consult with Zingarius Boxius Maximus directly to determine whether or not my omens for my future YouTube career remain positive. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. And yes, I am still working on the Space Race Part 2. Stop asking, it will happen eventually.